Hey guys, we have a Semogue 1438. It's a little boar brush. Why did I choose that? Well, I'm going to hit this knockoff of the Captain's Choice lather bowl. Has the same exact dimensions as the regular sized Captain's Choice bowl. It's got the ridges, it's got the little thumb medallion thing. I think this is probably just a duplication or a reproduction from China, instead of the actual, maybe the company that Captain's Choice gets theirs from, because they say they get theirs from a local potter, and so that would not be China. DS Cosmetics is a company that makes a lot of shave stuff over there, and AliExpress.com is the website where you can see a lot of it. This was super small when I tried it with a small badger, silver tip badger brush, a little bit smaller than this one, and it just wouldn't hold very much lather in there, and that was my main gripe. So we're going to try a couple things today. We use that tiny little boar brush. We'll see if that helps, and if I have overflow, I'm just going to let it overflow and not really worry about trying to keep it on hand, because maybe we'll see that whatever's left in there will be enough to do the job. You know, that might be a good test. So kind of testing two things. You might think that this handle looks a little thin if you're familiar with the vintage Gillette tech, and you would be right. The fat handle tech, and maybe the reason they call it the fat handle tech is because this handle also exists as the thin handle tech. It's got the same vertical ribbing here, and then the checking here as the fatter style, but it's just a little slimmer. Why does it do that? Well, because this is a little bit different than the American tech. This is the British, the UK flat bottom tech. And so the normal American tech has this diamond shaped bevel put in there for rigidity, I would imagine. And this one is different, and this is a smoother shaver last time I recall, and I really enjoyed the shave. Realized I hadn't used it in a while, so I'm bringing it out. Often with these thin handles, because they are hollow inside, it makes the razor pretty heavy on the head side, and so I will replace these with maybe a handle I got from Maggard or Weber or something like that. So because you definitely can swap out. This is the standard threading on Parkers, Mercurs, vintage Gillettes, obviously, Timeless, Wolfman, all those, not Carve, not Fatip, not Rockwell. Those are all international. Carve is Canadian, Fatip is Italian, and Rockwell, I believe, is in the UK. And so those have slightly different threading. It may actually work, but personally, I don't feel like I want to stress that joint if not all the threads are holding on equally. That's just my own thing. All right, so let us show you the soap and blade. What are we going to put in it? I haven't used a silver blue in a while. Been using the Persona Platinum a lot, and Gillette Platinum a little bit. Let's put a silver blue in there. This is a blade that does me very well often. And I had a good shave with Southern Witchcrafts the other day, and I've had this sample just sitting around for too long. And so this is Druantia, if you can't read the funky writing. And Druantia, Druantia is how I assume that's pronounced. It's a spicy woody scent. I'm going to get out my 1/4 teaspoon scoop and get some of that out. You can definitely smell the cedar and maybe a little bit of funk, like fungus, myrrh, amber, maybe cypress. Those are some of the notes that are in it. I'll go through the full list in just a second. All right, so here I wanted to show you some of the parts. Here's the bottom of the base plate, and man, these things look terrific. Well taken care of, probably a higher quality of plating than the American versions. Here is the top cap, which has the rails there on both sides of the center pin, And then it also has the 4 posts in the corners, and both of those things really line that blade up perfectly every time. And that's all there is to it. The blade tabs are exposed. I prefer that to make it easy to manipulate the blade safely from one of the sides which is not sharp. And we've tightened it up, and it doesn't need any kind of adjustment, anything like that. Let's see if we can kind of take a look at the exposure. It looks like it has positive exposure. We'll see what kind of shaver it is today. All right, so I am going to hook out. I've had this boar brush soaking now for maybe 2 hours, so that's good. Now, last time I used the Southern Witchcrafts, I used a 1/4 teaspoon. I'm going to use a little bit less this time. You see it's pressed down a little bit and it's hollowed out just a touch there, because I definitely got more than I needed last time. More lather than I needed. Druantia. Yeah, it's not a strong scent from the tub. Hopefully it'll be stronger in lather form, but I'm not holding out too much hope. A lot of times if it's not strong in the tub, it's not going to be strong in the lather either. Sometimes samples are that way because they're kind of pulled out and they just have a lot. They can aerate, you know. They tend not to be. I've discovered that on Stirling's soaps several times, where a sample is not nearly as intense, not nearly as strong as the normal puck of soap that it is a sample from. Okay. We have got cold water today, so I will be bringing heat every once in a while, just kind of bring it up to room temperature. And like I said, we've had this little boar soaking. It's small, so I'm hoping that it will feel more at home in such a small lather bowl. Now let me throw a little bit of water on my face. About a 24-hour growth, so that's good. And that is a little bit less than a 1/4 teaspoon pressed into the bottom of the bowl. So this little boar has now caught up with the other boars that I have in my rotation. I had him for a while and just had him sitting in the corner, not really being used. Then I thought, you know what, I want a representative of the extra grade hairs to be represented in this test, because I've got a lot of Semogues in this borathon that I've been working with. It's a really tiny guy. Tiny brush. Man, why is my nose itching? Maybe it's the dry air. So we are going to work this lather up for a little bit before we start adding water. As you can see, this easily fits. I've got big hands, but it is easily grasped. They put the sides so low, they say, so that the brush handles don't clink on the side of the bowl, but to be honest, I'd rather have a little clinking and then not have to worry about lather spillage as much. Now, man, this bowl right here, there are some fanatic adherents to this bowl, and that's all right, you know, because obviously they found that it works for them. Now, generally for me, it seems like it's going to be a little too small. But hey, what if I discover through this process that this tiny little boar feels right at home with this bowl? That could be cool. My 22 millimeter Badger did not. Lather was spilling over like crazy. I think I did end up with enough lather for 2 passes maybe. So we'll put 1 teaspoon in for now. This is a brush that has stiff backbone, a little more stiff than average, I would say. It's got decently soft tips, and it's still pretty young. But because of that backbone, it's not going to splay out very much, whereas the soft Badger yesterday definitely had some splay. And I added a teaspoon now, and it's not overflowing, so that's good. Who knows, maybe I'll keep this. Fortunately, this is a $30 bowl if you order it from Captain's Choice, and you'll get obviously the one from a local potter for Captain's Choice, you know, but pretty much the same. And you'll get a little anchor, their anchor symbol on this, what they call it a thumb pad, where you would kind of hold it like that, which is nice because if the outside of this bowl gets slippery, gets soapy, it's a slippery thing. And but if you get it on AliExpress, the DS Cosmetics version, then you're looking at a lot less money. I bought it on a Black Friday deal, and I think I got it for $5 or $6. I think right now it's maybe $12. Well, it's working really well right now. So if you've got a tiny Boar brush that you like to use, then this may be a perfectly fine lather bowl for you. It just feels so small. That looks pretty. That looks pretty elastic. We may not have too much more mixing to do. Now, someone online said that they use a 26 or 28 millimeter brush with this bowl all the time, and they don't have any problem. They said that and they're obviously a fan of this bowl. They got it early on in their shaving career and still have it and still really enjoy it. So they are really happy with it. They said that they will often mix up an early concentrate of the lather and then take it to their face and then add water there. And that was one of the reasons that I could see this bowl being handy. But they also said they could fully hydrate it in the bowl without a problem. And that's where I myself start having issues with it spilling over due to that. All right, well, you know what? Maybe this tiny little Boar is just a perfect match for this bowl. Excellent. And that's why you try things. All right, so let's just see if that's enough lather. 1 teaspoon of soap for Stirling. I'll probably have to add a little bit more. Let me go ahead and do that. Let's just add half a teaspoon more. So we've got 1.5 in there. Let's just mix that up. The large version of the Captain's Choice bowl is this diameter plus 3/4 of an inch. It's not a lot, but it might be enough depending on your brush size, the amount of soap you use, you know, that sort of thing. All right, I'm going to say let's just try this out right here. I wonder if I have gotten up. Surely this scrubby little brush has gotten up all that soap that was in the bowl. I do like the concentric circles design as a ridge design in the bowl. I do like that. I have another custom bowl that uses that as well. All right, throw some water on my face. And then let's see what happens. I mean, this looks like it's enough lather for 3 passes. So I'm thinking if you've got a little Boar brush that's really stiff, so it's not going to open up and splay very much, then that might be the right match for this bowl. Who knows, maybe I'll keep this guy around just for fun if I happen to be using this brush. This is going to be a slick lather, maybe a little too well hydrated. It's with usually when the lather flies off like that, sometimes that means I've put a little too much water in it. I'm also feeling the scrub of the bristles a little bit more than usual. Man, the lather's just flying off. So right now we're in the treatment kind of phase where we're connecting the lather with our face. You can go ahead and stop as soon as you feel good about it if you want. I like to spend a little bit more time scrubbing, cleaning the dirt and oils, and also making sure that lather is kind of bonding with that top layer of skin so that it protects it, lays down that slickness, because that equals protection. Feels good on my face here. It's dried up just a little bit, and so that's good. All right. You know, it looks like there's enough lather in there for 2 more passes. So very cool. Taking the shaving the lather away from the unshavable areas, so I don't shave over an area with the kind of wrinkly that doesn't have any hair, because sometimes that gives me some nicks. Oh yeah, that's a good feel. You do get a little bit of kind of blade feel, but it's very controlled. Little bit of audio. So it's not quite as smooth as something like the new Deluxe that I used recently. There we go. Second and third pass, no doubt, will be even smoother. All right, let's check out the scent now. It wasn't all that noticeable in the first pass. As I try to think about it and remember it, I don't remember very much. Yeah, it's very light. Hopefully that's just the sample, because Southern Witchcrafts usually has medium strength soaps that are really happy in my happy zone. And so maybe this is just the nature of the sample and that it's several months old perhaps. The notes in Druantia, the general idea was to have a woody, spicy scent. It was kind of to commemorate the winter solstice holiday, and its design was for crisp winter days. And it has cedar, oak moss, rosewood, moss, cypress, tobacco, fungus, sandalwood, mitsutake, is that a mushroom maybe? Myrrh, amber, orange, and ginger. So several different pieces are going into this mix, and no doubt some of them are small quantities, so that perhaps they are very much an assistant scent rather than some kind of main scent, you know. Nice slick lather. Where is this lather on the spectrum? This one's kind of light. A little bit airy. You can kind of see the bubbles in there. Had a sample of it had vanilla in it. Let's see if I can think about it. Samhain, spelled, this is the way it's spelled. Salween, I believe, is the actual pronunciation of the word in Gaelic. And it was a nicer lather than this one. This one's a little more airy, and the airiness makes me think that it might be too light. Might need some more water, but then the thinness then makes me think it doesn't need any more water. And I have had this kind of lather from Southern Witchcrafts before, and so I was pleasantly surprised when I didn't get it with Samhain. However, no matter how the foam part of it feels, the slickness is there in spades. It is just, it's on my fingers there. It's not going anywhere. It's not a watery slickness like some soaps. If I wipe it away and then come back, the slickness is sticking to my skin, and that's exactly what you want to be able to do a good job of protecting you from the blade edge. The slickness is just tremendous. So this is a little bit more airy than the Samhain sample that I had, and I might have to ask Stephen about that and see if he knows why that might happen. Sometimes airiness is a problem that you can beat out of a lather, but it just takes a little bit to make that, condense that lather just a bit. All right. Oh, yep, we've got our second pass on. Cross grain now. I have found that the audio helps me to find the nice angle sweet spot. And the feel. Oh, I got a nice woody note right there. Kind of a sandalwood and a cedar mix, maybe. I do like this razor head. It's still efficient, nice close cut, but it's smooth in a way because it's predictable. It's almost like it's locked down super tight, and so you're not getting any fluctuation or weirdness that makes you perhaps a little uncertain about how the cut is going. And that's a good feeling, even if you might have a little bit more blade feel. All right, we've got a great close cut going here. My face feels good, good level of comfort. And I'm about to put on the third pass, and I'm going to have a little bit left over. Well, looks like I'm going to have to go in and try to get some of it. Not a lot of margin, you know, in case maybe you end up having to do more passes than you want for some reason. But this is a very valid use of this bowl. I could easily see how somebody with a small brush or a very stiff brush where they don't splay very much could be happy with this bowl. And that was kind of my goal with this. I didn't think I would use it a whole lot because I do prefer the larger ones. But I just wanted to understand a little bit more. So, maybe I'll try another stiff brush. I've got a couple of stiff synthetics. If a person, worked those in without very much splay, perhaps they, even if they were larger diameter, might behave like the Boar and play very nicely with this bowl. Again, I do cross grain on my cheeks, and you know, there are people who have different hair growth patterns on their cheeks. I've seen some people where the hair grows from the center of their face backwards. And so for them, a with the grain pass would be from the center going out to the side like that, almost like a cat whisker type of direction. And then a cross grain for them would be coming from north to south or south to north. So some people mistakenly assume that the north-south is always with the grain. And while that may be very common for the cheeks, it is not, definitely not always true. Well, this is a nice slick soap base. Does a good job. My rinse after my second pass just felt really good. So it's a good soap base to use. Yeah, that's a terrific razor. I didn't even have to, I just ended up not doing my direction like this in my trouble spot. It was basically 3 passes of, you know, these type of directions, which are various degrees of cross grain. And it still did really well. So it's a comfortable razor. It does ride that midline. You get a little bit of razor feel, a blade feel. And so you've got good close cutting action, but it's a hard blade, it seems like, even though it's very thin. It's being held really well, and you just have a lot of faith in it, like I was saying, with its rigidity and consistency. And on the other end, it's still got that comfort. I am feeling just a little bit of skin, almost itchiness. It's not an irritation, more like an itchiness or something like that after my rinse. I don't usually react to products in the, you know, in the actual soaps, so it's probably not a reaction there. Skin still feels a little bit slick. There's some residual going on there. Let us find a balm throw on. Well, this one has a common element. It's got cypress in it, and so does the Druantia. So I guess what I learned from this soap is that I do like the scent, at least what I smell of it already, which it's not very strong. And so if I knew that the strength of it was going to be better in the full tub, then I would not have a problem shaving with it and enjoying that scent while I, you know, on for days and days. And to me, it's not a heavy scent, so I could shave with it in the summer too. The woodiness is appropriate in the summer. It's not a heavy type of woodiness, it seems. It's not a, even though it does have things like myrrh, maybe the amber, the ginger, perhaps might make it geared more toward a winter fragrance. Those aren't as strong of notes as the other pieces. And cedar and oak moss and rosewood, moss, cypress, tobacco, even the fungus, to me, they're all yearly. Sandalwood, they are all yearly type scents. Orange, that I can just enjoy any season at all. And so I think it's a neat scent. If I ran across a good sale or a person trying to sell their tub for a really good price, I might be tempted to snatch it up. It's nice. Creative scents. Some of the scents that they have some common elements that people are used to, and that's terrific because it means that the scent has a little bit of something that you know and you feel comfortable with, but then they add some other neat things to it to give it some variety, some interest, some sophistication, take it in a slightly different way than you thought about ahead of time, but they're still enjoyable. And I think they're the scent makers, I believe it's Courtney, generally, behind the Dogwood Handcrafts. I'm sorry, that's the brush side of their business. The Southern Witchcrafts scent making department there is Courtney, and I think she's just doing a great job. So many of those scents I just really enjoy. And no, they're not practicing witches or anything like that. It's just a theme idea that they like to stick with. Well, turns out it was a good decision. The Tuscany and the Druantia work really well together. It's unfortunate though, because Tuscany is a discontinued scent with Stirling, and they're selling off a bunch of their product. And this has a couple of different elements. Now that I think about it, it's got the, in terms of being in common, it's got the cypress as well as an orange. I think this has bergamot. This just said orange on their description. It could be similar, but yeah, so definite match there. So I'll have to remember that in the future. All right. All right. Well, Lather Bowl Junior. I put in my initial first impression with the Badger brush, I put lather in quotes because for me it was not a good lather bowl. However, with this smaller brush, it is definitely a lather bowl and it worked just fine. And here's some of the little, see that kind of coating there? Almost a little airy, powdery looking almost. It looks like it needs some more water, or the water just evaporated, because it wasn't, it did look a little bit creamier earlier. I'm gonna have to ask around about that. Now, inside this bowl, I could definitely scrape together enough for another pass. So that's 4 passes of lather inside this little bowl because of this tiny brush. So there we go. Let me show you some size comparisons. Clean this brush out just a little bit. This is probably like a 22 millimeter brush knot. Here is your kind of standard handle that you might see a lot. DS Cosmetics or Shave Forge, they have these kind of handles. Maggards is starting to cover them to have them. So it's a lot smaller. The loft in the brush knot is pretty reasonable compared to this silver tip over here. The loft is not really that much shorter than that. It's just the handle, but the diameter is definitely smaller. And I think that's one of the things that's going to be the most important. And the fact that it's stiff, and so it's not going to splay nearly as much as the Badgers did. Well, you know, because so many people like this bowl, I thought that surely there is a good use for it in the shaving world and community. So it looks like I could see how using a small brush would be one use. Number 2, like I mentioned earlier, some people do use it kind of as a pre-lather bowl. They take the brush with the loaded soap and they just kind of work it in this bowl for a little while, just to kind of work up an early lather, and then drop the bowl and then face lather from there, adding water to the brush as needed, not actually mixing the whole lather consistency up in the bowl. And so those are 2 very valid reasons. I may not pay $30 to have a bowl for either one of those reasons, but I'll pay $6. And I'm glad I tried it out. I'll keep it around. Maybe I'll whip it out again. I didn't say it earlier, but you probably saw it in the earlier bit of the video, but the usage number was 6 on this particular blade, and then I just put on the dot for the 7th use. This is not my marathon silver blue blade, and so this is one I'll probably run up to about 10, and then I think my marathon's up to about 32. It's not super high. I'll run this up to about 10 and then get a new one. I do that when I'm benchmarking or testing razors, and I don't know exactly how they're going to act, because if you have too many variables, then you don't know what's going on. If you don't know whether it was the blade that was a little inferior, or if the razor was just maybe a little too rough on you. If you're new, one of the common recommendations, and I think I ascribe to this one as well, maybe get a blade assortment, run through it nice and easy. And when you land on one that's comfortable, maybe you don't even finish the rest of them. When you land on one that's comfortable, stick with it. Order a 100-pack or a 50-pack, something like that, and just stick with that one for about 3 months. Because if you keep changing blades, and I did this early on, and it took my technique a little longer to mature because of this. Too many variables at play. I should have stuck with one blade. I realize it's kind of boring, but that's my advice. If you don't want to take it, then don't take it. But stick with one, because if you want to change razors, as you experiment with lathers, you're trying to get, maybe they're a little too dry sometimes, a little too wet sometimes, then you don't want to have a different blade coming at you with all these different other variables going on. You're working on your angle, so one particular shave, you may have the lather be exactly right, but the angle was way off, and then so you don't know, was it the angle or the blade? Then another time your angle will be right, but the lather will be a little too dry, and so you won't get the smoothness and glide. And again, you won't know that it's the lather or the blade. But if you keep the blade the same and use it, however many times until it starts maybe tugging or feeling uncomfortable, then switch it out, and then there you go. And now once you get 100 shaves in, something like that, then go nuts. Once you feel like your technique is good, now you can change blades, and you'll have a better grasp of, nope, my lather was on point. I've had this razor for a while. I enjoy it, so I know it was good. My angles and stuff have been good with it, so I can accurately say that this blade was the difference maker in this particular shave. Yeah, I probably could have gotten away with 1 teaspoon of water for this, a little bit less than a 1/4 teaspoon amount. But I went ahead and put another half in. It ended up working, and it may have been just right. This kind of foamy lather is a little hard to nail down sometimes, like I was talking about earlier. All right, I'm going to clean up. In terms of scent strength, I'd say that soap was maybe on the 3 out of 10. I did occasionally get whiffs of it as I was working with it, but in general, I didn't really perceive it too much during the shave, and that is atypical for Southern Witchcrafts. And so I'm thinking that a full tub is going to have a little bit more intensity and be more like around the 5 out of 10 area, like so many of their other soaps. So because I find that I kind of like this soap pretty well, I would not hesitate to buy a full tub and just expect that the strength would just be a little better. Well, we're all cleaned up. Been staring at those Southern Witchcraft samples for a while. Glad to get 2 of them knocked out in a couple of days, and enjoyed trying that out. Enjoyed the slickness. I had good glide with the razor. It may have been a little airy and foamy, but performance was good. Chiseled face is similar. It's a little airy, but I'd say that this formula is just a little nicer in terms of the slickness department than Chiseled Face, and Chiseled Face is still really good. Enjoyed bringing the brush into 20 uses mark, so now he joins his other comrades in the brush Boarathon. The pleasure to find the use for this bowl if you got a small, stiff brush. And it was good. It was enjoyable shaving with that flat bottom tech. Again, not too many recorded shaves with it. It's a neat little piece. Glad to have it. All right. What's up with the British and the way Gillette made those razors back then? Man, I just like so many of those models. A lot. The Aristocrats, the flat bottom techs, the new Deluxes were American, I think. Anyway, so many good ones. The Aristocrats, there were 7, there's just tons of iterations of those, and I own a few of them, and I just enjoy them all in different ways. All right. Well, hey, I sure hope there was something here that helped you out. I sure enjoyed it and learned a lot. This is Sugar Daddy Shaves. You take care. Good night.